And joining us in studio to discuss how South Africans can translate Nelson Mandela International Day into practical action for lasting upliftment is Michael Tsepo Tabane, founder of My Success Blueprint Mentorship Program, ANC Youth League, a member of the National Executive Committee, Sizopila Mkhize, and Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, Gift of the Givers founder. Good evening to you and thank you so much for joining us. You at home, join us on social media at AfroWorldView, hashtag AfroPrimeTime. Let's just talk about the work that Nelson Mandela International Day had espoused to do, especially that we must replicate this on a day-to-day basis. Dr. Suleiman, let's start with you in how, in our private spaces and areas of influence, we can make this a reality.
Late Nelson Mandela came with a very strong message. On the one side, he stood for against oppression and injustice. At the same time, whilst he was incarcerated, when he was released, he gave a very positive picture of a very positive human being. He wasn't hateful, he wasn't vengeful, he wasn't vindictive. So he said, yes, we need to embrace the oppressor and the oppressed through his message. Saying, yes, we need to uplift our people on the one side, but embrace those who made the mistakes on the other side. But together we both need to make change. And I think he made a dramatic impression in the World Cup in 1995 when he wore the Springbok rugby shirt. That is symbolic of oppression, and he wore it. And on top of it, he took the anthem of an oppressor government and put it into the anthem of a liberation government, the stem, into the national anthem. Now that shows a man very positive who wants to embrace all people of all cultures, all religions in the country. If he could bend over backwards with that kind of spirit, then we as a nation should take a fig out of the tree or a leaf out of the tree and say, let's follow this great man and do something from our side. Let's hold each other. Those who are down, let's pick them up. And it's about sharing. It's about sharing across religion, across culture, across race, to say we are South Africans. This man has made a great sacrifice. Our country didn't burn, as happened in so many countries throughout the world. The countries burned down, nobody benefited. Here we have a chance to benefit.
Okay, Sizopila, does that resonate with the youth, especially in the climate where we're saying that the second transition is long overdue? The aspirations of the black majority still being denied, dreams being deferred. What Dr. Suleiman is saying is virtuous. Yes, we agree that we need to hold hands, but is that the psyche of young people in general?
Well, I think firstly I would start by saying that President Mandela did the most of what he could do at that time. And as leaders came, I think every leader that came after Mandela had to leave a legacy. And you look at the youth of today, it's a little that has changed from the times of Nelson Mandela. Well, President Mandela was a very kind man who believed in unity of the country, who believed in the unity of the world even. But we need to go back and look at some of his aspirations. That were they betrayed along the way, because when Nelson Mandela, remember I think it was in 1993 when Chris Hani died, Nelson Mandela said we must stop this thing of fighting back the white people or the oppressors at that time, and we must go to elections and be democratic. Now with the youth of today, you were still crying out about the same things that we cried out about in the times of Nelson Mandela. Leadership have come and go and went. Comrade President Mbeki, Comrade President Zuma, now is Comrade President Cyril. We are still faced with the most challenges, and the youth today, we are celebrating the Day of Mandela. Leadership of various political parties, various organizations will be out there showing face, showing smile, but tomorrow it will be back to square one. The lives of young people are still going to be the same and nothing is going to change. So I think the youth of today needs to stand up, be united, like that youth of 1976, to say, this is our path. This is what we want to do as young people. And they can only stand up for themselves.
Okay, and also, I mean, not being a homogenous group, is that they would have to define what the enemy is for the youth at the moment. And largely it would be unemployment, etc.
Well, I agree with you that they'll have to identify what the enemy is. Because another thing is that we're faced and we're focused on things that are not assisting us. The things that we must be facing head on is your white monopoly capital. That is what we must face on, because today we are faced with a situation where we can't access certain sectors of economy because of the color of our skin. It's still the case. It's still happening. We need to We need to unite in finding out what is it that is our
Can we
enemy.
engage, we just engage Sizopila, Dr. Suleiman, and also Mr. Tabane here in how you take all of that frustration, and these are realities that young people live, the fact that the system, the mold had been set to exclude the black majority, and that is the current experience. So how do we then, in the spirit of Mandela, of forgiveness, unity, equal opportunity, do we make it a reality for young people in the country? I'll start with you, Mr. Taban.
Okay, thank you so much. Like, in my opinion, I believe that we should go back to being African. And then, and like the African spirit says that, you know, if you see a house burning and the people are trying to put out that fire, what you should do is not sit by the sidelines and complain and ask who should be blamed for that fire to have started. What you should do, you should pick up the bucket of water and help people who are helping to put out the fire, and then you blame someone later. So what I've seen, the reason why I'm using this parable is because what I've seen now in South Africa, we have a problem whereby people are armchair activists. We complain on the sidelines, and then there's so much that we can do as individuals in our own individual corners. I promise you, each and every little thing that you are efficient in or proficient in, there is someone who will benefit from it, regardless of where you are. You don't have to reach a certain status or a certain economical status for you to be able to help other people. So every little thing that you can do, it be teaching someone how to read, it be encouraging someone, uplifting their spirit if they are down.
Yeah.
So things like that, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, Dr. Suleiman, I mean, one of the famous quotes of Dr. Mandela was that it always seems impossible until it is done. I mean, you've spoken about the milestones that this country achieved, short of having a civil war and bloodshed, all of that we avoided. So how do we deal, realistically speaking, and hear the plight of young people, many who are still living in obscurity, lack of opportunities, and deal with that frustration as well?
Both of them have made very valid points. I mean, the reality is the youth are faced with a big problem in this country. 52% of them are unemployed. Now that's a major stats for a country. What happens to the future of this country? You know, so of course, a lot of it has to be done sorted out by government. You know, the government is in power, selected by the people. They have to implement changes more, strongly to say, look, we have to create opportunity. The fees must fall campaign. They have to look at, I think, let's go back a little bit. I think the way they do the budgets in the country, that has to be looked at very, very carefully. And the people in charge, stealing money, corruption, doesn't help the cause. It actually puts our people backwards. And the political parties involved have to come out more strongly against those kind of things. Because if you're losing 100 billion, 200 billion, how many kids won't that put through varsity? How many opportunities won't it open? Today, let's take a classical example. We were in Alex Township. We were celebrating the 100 years of Mandela at the house that he stayed in Alex. Not many people know that he first went to Alex before he went to Soweto. And we highlighted this house, and on one Sunday, 2 youngsters from Alex came to us. And they said, we're the cake masters. We want to bake a cake. So we said, okay, bake a cake, it's fine. We didn't ask much questions. But here were 2 black people, young people, entrepreneurs from Alex, who want to do something for Alex, for Mandela from Alex. We said, we'll give you the ingredients, do it. You know what a magnificent cake they baked today, what the whole history of Mandela on the cake. Now look at these 2 people who come from the township. They haven't come from private schools, they haven't come from top schools, but the skill that they had just coming from a poor township. He said, don't wait for somebody. Don't take the bucket and put the house fire out yourself. They did it, they came forward themselves. They did it themselves, and they did a magnificent cake. Now people like that need an opportunity. Like those 2, all the youth of this country need an opportunity. And I think there, government and business and labor have to sit together and say, look, we all have to give something along the line. We have to hold each other's hands and make concessions and make opportunities and allow everybody to get into the system.
And the obligation on government, as you're saying, that if there are policies that need to be reviewed or reformed, we know that the talk now around land expropriation without compensation, etc., is a consultative process. That's the nature of how South Africa operates as a constitutional country. The thing is, let's go back to the white monopoly capital, for example. What laws, in your view, or acts or legislation that is prohibiting young people from tapping onto those opportunities, as Dr. Suleiman referred to?
Well, firstly, what has been stopping young people or being an obstacle towards young people achieving what they want to achieve. It's something that we've been fighting as the ANC Youth League, and the NYDA as well has been speaking about it. The issue of saying when you have graduated recently, you must have 5 years of experience for you to be employed by a certain company, which we are very glad that President did say that he's going to engage companies, that they scrap off the experience part of your entry job levels. But there are many other things that young people are having a problem with. Opportunities are still not the same. When you look at the opportunities of young people staying in Johannesburg and young people staying in the Eastern Cape at Koffimvaba, you can see that the opportunities are not the same. Might be the infrastructure that is the problem, might be the budget that is the problem. So here, I think one of the most important things that we need to understand, more especially as young people, is that we need to push the government and all leaders. When I speak about leaders, I don't speak only about the ANC, but your political parties, your NGOs and everyone. I think at some point people gamble with our lives while they are seated there and enjoying coffee in their offices, playing political games with our lives. And the people that are affected mostly, it's your people that are underprivileged at home. They can't even afford bread, for instance. I think at some point, our people in South Africa need to lead themselves. Because when you see that your leadership is promising, they always have. Now, what we do as people who are in government is that we say we have an Agenda 2030. When we say we have an Agenda 2030, 2030 arrives. You check on what has been implemented on this agenda that we had many years ago. Maybe 2 or 3 things that have been implemented in the whole lot of things. So we're fine with policies. The policies are very nice. They're very beautiful. But when it comes to implementation, it becomes a problem. Not because sometimes our leaders don't want to implement, but sometimes it's because when they implement, they'll be stepping into toes of certain people who are having major shareholders in certain companies that must not be touched.
Okay, so you're talking about leadership that is conflicted and maybe wants to preserve their own interests. But again, coming back to the life and times example of Utatu Nelson Mandela and how within the system you can still make a difference, you can still collaborate, reach out to programs like yourselves, My Success Blueprint Mentorship Program. Maybe very briefly, how many lives have you impacted and what has the success rate been of your interventions?
So, like how many lives, I wouldn't tell because it's more of a paid forward, because the type of people that I help, the people who are running NGO organizations are teachers. And then if you help a teacher is about to help 1,000 more other kids if you manage to effectively help that teacher. So I wouldn't come up with a number per se. I wouldn't know because sometimes the extent of your help, you don't know how far it goes because you're not with the people that you are affected along their journeys as they go on.
Yeah, well, at least a few that came back to say, we are grateful, this is the difference that you've made.
Yeah, I'll give you a simple example. There's a young man who opened an organization called the Young Men Movement, YMM, Kabelo Chabalala. He's one of the people that I mentored. So as we speak now, YMM is one of the recognized organizations we have in our country for mentoring young boys. And then there are other organizations as well, like other people that would come to me and say, with your intervention, with your help, we managed to pass through this, like the following milestones and so on and so forth. Yeah.
And what is the criteria? I'll come back to you, Dr. Suleiman. What's the criteria for selection for your mentorship program?
Okay, so what I do is that I have an online form on my website, and the people, they go there, then they register there, and after the registration, then I go select them or shortlist them according to the quality of the answers that they gave. And after that, then I will do telephonic calls with them to do further shortlisting, depending on the number of people that I got as applicants. So then as a result, then I get my 10 people.
Okay, Dr. Suleiman, don't you think that we are subjective in how we view Utatu Nelson Mandela, especially as the celebrated, revered statesman that he was, as opposed to looking on the revolutionary side where he had spoken about dominance of one over another? At the moment, we see that economically there is that kind of dominance. Do you think that that is an aspect of Mandela's legacy that we are betraying?
Look, given the circumstances, the man could do the best he could at that time. You can't decide for him. You were not in the picture. You were not with him. You were not making the decisions. It's very easy to criticize of somebody from the outside when you're not involved. I was involved in the war in Bosnia. And the president and the army that was oppressed was starting to make progress. And suddenly the president stopped doing what he was doing. And everybody said, what's wrong with him? And he said a gun was put to my head. If I don't stop, you know what? They bomb all my people. If I stop, my people want to bomb me. What do? I sound like a sellout. I sound like a traitor. I'm put in a difficult situation. What is the worst case scenario? I'd rather my people be angry with me than them getting decimated. In the same way, I don't know what happened in Mr. Mandela's head. You know, what kind of challenges he faced or what problems.
No, I'm saying currently as citizens that also, you know, the message of Nelson Mandela's legacy resonates with us, that we want to see this country prosper and create the egalitarian society that we want. That the part of where the dominance of the economy is not necessarily being confronted as a collective in order to bring those up.
Well, the common thing is we've got political liberation, not economic liberation. That's what has been spoken about all the time. But I think one other aspect we need to talk about when we look at government itself, I think there's a major shift in the values and the principles of many of the people in government today. If you take the time from Mr. Mandela and the people who came up with him, I think they really cared for the people, you know. And I find over the years, more people have come to government and people have started becoming self-centered. And one of the reasons we're not making progress is people are looking out for themselves. The revolutionary spirit is gone. What can I do for myself and for my family is more predominant over what can I do for my people. And then people come election time to the communities and say, please vote for me and I'll do this, that and the other. It doesn't take 2 or 3 months and this, that and the other is forgotten. And I think we need to check, political parties need to check the type of candidates they put inside there, and the candidates themselves, if they put more pressure, if the municipalities where the local services are, provincial government, if people start doing their job properly, I think we'll have more rapid changes where the opportunities will come for the people much faster. It's got to do with the caliber of the leader. And leader doesn't have to be the president. It has to be every person who is a leader selected by the people in that community or in the province or nationally. And if those people change their ideas, their thinking, or their behavior, their morals and their values, well, not morals, their values and ethics, I'm sure there'll be lots of pressure to bring about changes more rapidly in the interest of the people, not themselves.
And the responsibility on the youth in that part, you know, that there isn't an over-reliance on government only, and to, like Mr. Tabane here, to do something, you know, to be actively involved in trying to create the change you want to see.
You know, today we visited one school in Mamelodi where we handed over textbooks because the library was empty. It was part of Mandela Day, but it's something that we do not want to end with, and it's something that we do not want to do only on one day where everyone is watching, where there is media, just to be seen, just to post about it and all that. Nelson Mandela spoke about many things. Amongst them is the freedom of the Palestinians. To say our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians. I think as young people, as much as we have our own troubles in our own country, but I think it is very important that we look in other countries as well. What is going on? How can we assist? Because Nelson Mandela was able to assist other countries as well. I think that spirit of unity amongst us as young people internationally is very important, and it is very important for us and our own growth. And as I said, that young people at some point, they need to lead themselves, and by leading themselves, they not to ban schools, not to go on riot and all that. We can organize ourselves. For instance, there are schools in the Eastern Cape which have a shortage of teachers. You have young people who have knowledge of the subjects in the school. Young people can go to those schools and educate those learners, and South Africa will be a better place with the little that anyone and everyone can do in the country.
Okay, I need to get more tangible, examples, for the benefit of our viewers and primarily young people, for which now the baton has been passed on for them to lead the future of this country. In the sense, another quote by Utatu Mandela is that poverty is man-made, pretty much like apartheid and slavery, to be exact. And he says that this can be removed by human beings as well. It goes back to the question of the caliber of leadership that we have, whether they are truly interested in the greater good of the people, or has it really been about self-preservation? Your view?
Yeah, I think I'd like to take it home in terms of being practical about how we can combat this thing. I'll give you a simple example. Like by profession, I'm a software engineer. So then I took an oath that I will train kids from an early age of 10 to be computer programmers because of this fourth industrial age that we are in now. So because if we don't prepare kids for the world that we are heading to, so that world will spit them out. And then they will feel like they are misfits in such. So that's one of the practical things I do. And then everyone, like I said, everyone in their own aspect, they can make that contribution. If you're a nurse, then you can decide to be a nurse not only when you're on duty. You can be a nurse when you are off duty. And then, because there's an auntie somewhere next door who's looking for such care, but they don't afford like that proper care, you can do that. So my point is that there are few practical ways that we can do. And then we start by looking at what is it that we're doing, like ourselves, like our professions, and how can we extend that, and how can we teach other people and then to become better.
Yeah, okay, and very brief comments in rounding off in that we're talking about the spirit of Ubuntu, essentially, that you would care your neighbor shouldn't go hungry if you've got surplus, but you need to have that kind of heart. And in the current political climate, the dynamics are such that some are wanting to hold back and preserve. We've seen this with the economic or investment strike, that we're not getting to where we desire to because of those kind of fear or inconsistency or uncertainty around policies. Dr. Suleiman, your view on how, as a nation, we can really inculcate or revive that type of culture?
I've seen changes, again, from people in the townships. You know, people deeply rural still have that policy of sharing, where you find that old people have given up a lot for the kids to go to school, to varsity, given up their money to say the kids go where you want. But I've found the kids that have come to the city, in most cases, have forgotten where they've come from. You know, they've forgotten the old people, they've forgotten to take care for them. The moment they got the degrees, I mean, I've seen it in varsity because I I get invited to speak at lots of student graduations. And when people qualify, they haven't even finished the last month. They're already thinking that the car companies come to them, which car would you like, pay me in 3 months' time, take a big, don't have to pay any deposit now, and you pay so much per month. Their money is already allocated to material things. The values have shifted. I'm thinking to myself, but what did your grandfather do for you? What did your granny do for you? You should be going back to those areas and say, look, I need to uplift them first. Their hope is in you. So there's multi-levels. The type of people we put in government, they need to care for the people. What both of them are talking about, give the skills that you have to share about everybody. Don't burn your schools and your libraries. Make use of what you have and share things and in all the positive things in everything that we can do. We go 1% further, 5% further, 10% further. It's progress.
Okay, we're going to give you the last word very briefly.
Well, I think just to tap on what he had just said, that the values have shifted. I mean, we are led by mostly people who fight each other on media about things that happen in the corners or whatever. I think every leader should be an example. Even when they have those fights that are going on, even when they have them, it's okay. But the society is not supposed to see those fights that they are having, because we are building a society that must have unity. So how are you going to see unity when in the Sunday newspaper a certain leader has been spoken about badly by another? On the next week, he responds to a certain leader about another issue. I mean, it goes back to the issue of corruption that we're speaking about. Most of these people are just fighting over money, and it's our people that are at stake, and it's our people that do not know how to move forward, because our people, their focus have shifted from what they must do for us to fighting amongst themselves. All
right, very briefly, Michael, the contact details for your My Success Blueprint Mentorship Program.
Yeah, people can just go to my website, mttabane.com.
mttabane.com. We're going to leave it there.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time. And again, happy Nelson Mandela International Day to you. And those are guests, Michael Tabane, founder of My Success Blueprint Mentorship Program, ANC Youth League member of the National Executive Committee, Sizopila Mkhize, and Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, Gift of the Givers founder. You at home, thanks indeed for watching. We're back after this.